There and welcome to another episode of the Three Man Weave College Basketball Podcast. Yes, it's January 9th, which means conference play is in full swing. We're like 4 games into the schedule now. It's wonderful. The true essence of college basketball, the rivalries, the home and away, the unexpected results. It's all happening right now. And we're here to guide you through the past week of it. Hello, my name is Kai. I'm the host of Three Man Weave, today, of the podcast. Hello, Jim Root. How are you?
I'm wonderful, Kai.
Whoa,
Ready to
whoa,
rock?
whoa. I'm good too, I guess. Yeah, sorry, Jim. Go
I was
ahead.
going to
How
get
are
to
you?
you.
I'm more important, Matthew. It's time
Oh,
it's time
sorry.
Kai finally put us in our places there. I'm excited about it. No, it's a big week, Kai. We had a huge Saturday. We had an awesome Tuesday in particular of hoops. A lot to recap and discuss, and plenty more to look forward to this weekend.
Indeed. And Matthew Cox, how are you? I'm sorry.
I'm fine. I'm probably not as good as you two guys, but actually, no, I'm better than both of you. Let me retract my statement. I'm better than both of you. I'm great. Looking at the board right now, the screen's popping. Playing some wagers, about to talk some hoops. I have a lot of thoughts. I don't know if I could find a top 2 or 3 from our 3-man thoughts, Kai, but I had a lot of sporadic thoughts jotted out in my notepad. Honestly, a lot of frustrating moments for me watching college basketball from the past week.
Yep, good. I hope you rant
I
about
don't want to make it like it. Yeah, I will rant. It'll be more ranty today. So I apologize for any sort of old manny vibes from me. But yeah,
Oh.
just some kind of tease there. Yep.
Well, Matt the dad. Matthew's a dad now. How is dad life? Do you like it?
Yeah, it's great. Gemma loves it.
What would you
I like
say?
it.
I hate it.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm supposed to address that. It's tough to answer after a night of 2 hours of sleep. So ask me again at noon, and I'll
Well.
gush about my loving, glowing daughter and what a terrific gem that she is. But
Yes.
at this particular moment in time, it's not ideal for podcasting and forming creative, funny thoughts off the dome. So we're in a battle though. We'll battle.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, let's get into the actual college basketball show. JP does our music, intro and outro. 3MW_CBB is where you can find us on Twitter or on Instagram as well. It exists. Spotify, Amazon, iTunes, wherever you listen to your podcast, please do hit the subscribe button and leave us reviews on the Apple app. We will read them at the end of the show, ask questions in there, all that good stuff. And finally, well, actually 2 more. 1, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We go live every single week for our podcast, 7 a.m. on Thursdays. That is Central Standard Time. We also do a best bet show on Saturday mornings. If you're into the sports betting type of thing, take you through the whole slate on that show every Saturday. And then finally, subscribe to our Discord with Trilly Donovan, the best college basketball community, I think, on planet Earth. You have everything in there from sports betting. We talk it every single day to actual analysis of hoops to discussion of teams, general chat. It really is a fantastic community. Want to keep growing it. Want to keep spending time in there. Check it out. The link is in the description to the YouTube video. It takes you to our preview page, but you can join the Discord through that. That's it for the intro. I'm excited for the show. Let's get into it. Roots Roundup time. Here we go.
Let's do it. We're talking news and notes here, but first, Matthew, a shout to our favorite sponsor. No, we don't have favorites. One of our favorite sponsors. That's what I'll say. CBB Analytics.
That's right, Jim. CB Analytics, our guys, Nick over there, are doing a phenomenal job. Got a discussion with him this week, talking about some of the pro tier and user tier updates. To sort of tease some of this last time, but he's added a new slice where you can break down some of the efficiency, offensive and defensive, half court offense transition, and on putbacks, so off of offensive rebounds as well. So just adding new ways to contextualize performance. I kind of love this new addition because it allows you to break down who's, I know Synergy has something comparable in terms of against zone versus man. So this is just one of a new way he's added a filter to contextualize, like I said, performance by situation. He also has a new Game Explorer tool, sort of similar to the Basketball Reference, where you can do like a query. It's really helpful, I think, for finding, hyperboles for great games, individual performances, team performances versus historical patterns. I know that was a very popular thing. I used to use a Basketball Reference before they put that behind the paywall. So I'm excited to dive into that. He also has a new updated game recaps page, which kind of breaks down some stuff between box score and play-by-play stats, and a whole host of new things. I'm still kind of digesting it, Kai, drinking from the fire hose. Again, check it out. There's a ton of stuff there on top of the stuff that we already use on a daily basis, such as, performances against quad 1, quad 2, road home, conference, non-conference, all under the shooting chart visualization, which we like to kind of look at how teams are shooting, where the shot diet is. We love the word shot diet, don't we? But again, it's awesome. Check it out. Sign up today. Use our promo code WEAVE, WEAVE, for a $40 off a user tier subscription, and DM us directly for access to the holy grail of everything for a pro tier subscription. Jim?
Well said, Matthew. Key headlines here in Roots Roundup, our news and notes section. First, per the old Johnny Rothstein, there is consideration in the sport, in the highest levels of it, to give all players 5 years of eligibility. I'm not a fan, Kai.
What's the point? Why are we doing this? Why?
Because they keep losing lawsuits and they assume at some point they're going to get a lawsuit like, hey, that one class of players got to play 5 years because of the global pandemic exception to the rule. Why can't we?
Because then we'll have 6-year guys. We'll have lawsuits for 6 years in college basketball. And it doesn't stop till you're 35 years old, etc.
Yeah, it's at some point, Kai, it'll be unlimited eligibility with a 24-second shot clock and 5-year contracts. And wait a second, we just made a second NBA. Yeah. I'm not. That's the snowball that we've started to push down the hill, and I'm not excited about where it's going. Yeah. In fact, I'm really bummed out about it. But whatever, I'll pretend that that's not giving me existential dread for the sport. Okay, on we go. Coaching news: the American Conference named Amir Abdur-Rahim the honorary coach of the year, and they've named a sportsmanship award after him going forward. Matthew, I love this just as a tribute to a guy who, by every single account, was a wonderful person to be around. He was a terrific basketball coach, and just having a lasting legacy for a guy like that makes so much sense. So credit to the American here. Shout out
to AR. I wish I was at my official office. I could pay tribute to the banner recently added in his honor behind me in my decor. So yeah, great guy. I love hearing all the glowing reviews about him from coaches throughout the year and their post-game pressers. His network tentacles spread way farther than I even realized. Like guys that had worked with him before, that had knew him, and they all have like very cool, specific stories that like it's not just like some guy that you have to feel obligated to pay tribute to. Like he was, by all accounts, just an awesome dude. So yeah, sucks. Miss him.
But good to have his name continue to be out there in the world. In more of an odd but probably expected event here, Mick Cronin had his annual nuclear meltdown at the podium, throw the players under the bus for UCLA. He's calling players out by name, specific mistakes in the press conference. He was saying he's the most energetic and passionate guy in their locker room and they're in the gym every single day, and it's making him exhausted. Called his players soft, called him delusional. Kai gets to the point where I'm impressed he still gets players. So like they must really like him for them to tolerate this. But yeah, I mean, there's just a whole flurry of what are the repercussions of this? Is it going to hurt the recruits that they have committed? How much can he keep going after players by name in an era of player empowerment? It's just Mick being Mick. He needs to be back in the Midwest doing this stuff.
It's a bold strategy. Not many coaches these days would do that because of fear of transfer. I don't mind the old school approach, I guess. I mean, it gets kind of tired because he does it so often. It's not, the impact is less if you do it constantly. If it's a out of the blue thing, maybe it sparks a fire, but it's kind of his shtick. I enjoy the 3-piece suit on the sidelines that Mick brings out, but I don't know if you need to be calling out players by name. It's not that serious. They've lost 3 or 4, okay? They're still having a great season.
Yeah, it's just one of those annual traditions. Like we'd be shocked if there wasn't a Mick Cronin blow up with players being tossed and blamed and Mick. I don't know. I'm sorry, but if you're complaining about players' energy and being soft, that's your job.
You are the
You're
coach.
Stop passing the buck.
Yeah,
maybe it'll light a fire under him.
I didn't like how he specifically led off. I think that with, I have 500 wins. Like I don't need to be, I don't need this. Like, you guys are sort of the ones with something to be. He didn't say that exactly, but I didn't like that he kind of.
He did mention he has 500 wins. So yeah.
He did kind of lead with like I am the shit type of context. And then sort of, Mick.
Mick.
We'll see.
Hey,
Yeah.
and more positive note, speaking of wins, Bruce Pearl set the wins record for coaches at Auburn with his 214th win, passing the previous record holder of 213. He had plenty of love from the coaching community, from the commentary community. I was watching an SEC game last night. The commentator said he called Bruce and he's like, I'm sick of people calling me about this. I just want to coach. I want to prepare for our next game. But hey, that's a ball coach. That's that mentality. So congratulations to Mr. Pearl. Might have his best team yet at Auburn this year. Kai, there's also drama in the Big Ten. Mr. Muss,
Drama. I actually
former
did see
SEC
this.
coach.
Yes.
He apparently blew by Mike Woodson in the handshake line last night, Wednesday night, for those of you listening on Friday. Says he had no comment on Woodson in the post game. Reddit says he blew out Dusty May in the previous post game handshake out in LA. Man, I've heard plenty of complaints from the Indiana world about Mike Woodson. I have not heard he's a jerk that I won't shake his hand. Well,
Yeah.
this just seems like a Muss problem.
Or Dusty May. And there's a pattern. Muss. I don't know if Muss is the greatest dude to be around. That's what I'm gonna say that. I think he rubs people the wrong way, and he appears to be taking out some of the losing that USC has done thus far on his fellow coaches. How sad. Mussy, figure it out, man. Get back on the bus.
Yeah, pretty well noted at Arkansas for turning over his staff frequently. That's kind of a connect the dots situation, folks. We'll let you take your conclusion from that as you would like. USC now sitting 79th in KenPom and favored per KenPom to win 2 of their remaining 15 games. So it may not be a real great bus ride the rest of the season for the Trojans.
You can tell he's frustrated. Yeah, he's kind of settling nicely there. You can tell he's frustrated with the home. God, the USC home crowd. Kai, you've been there. I mean, that's just like an absolute
horrible.
laughing stock by Big Ten standards. And he just basically played at one of the best home courts in college basketball at Bud Walton for years. And you can tell he's trying to drum up energy, and it's just a frustrating go for him. But hey, he signed up for it, so I don't know what to tell you, Muzz.
Yeah, I have a very hard time feeling bad for the millionaire coaches that rage quit their previous job. Yeah. John Calipari, Eric Musselman, and just like, I'm going to go over here, and it's not going that well. Dang it! What? Hey, this isn't as fun as I thought.
Who recruited these players? Who brought these players in?
Speaking of, I believe Calipari last night said something along the lines of, "This is harder than I thought it would be." Okay, buddy.
Wait, if we want to talk about Arkansas, that team is terrible, and that's a horribly coached team. I'll go on and rant later, but my goodness gracious.
Ooh, we have Arkansas. Okay, good. I'm excited to talk.
I have a bad coaching section. They fall right in there.
Okay, I have a thought in that. Not a 3-man thought, Kai, but I will add to yours.
Yes.
Excited to get that. All right, that's the coaching world. Injuries. Hey, positive news. Zach Fremantle returned. The season-ending ACL tear in rumors were apparently much ado about nothing. Again, it was very odd that he finished the prior game that he sustained the injury in, so it was tough to believe that it was an ACL tear. But he's back. Hasn't really helped Xavier, unfortunately. The season continues to go a little bit off the rails for a team that we were very hyped about in the preseason. But at least Fremantle is back, so perhaps they can continue to find a way to access their ceiling. Staying in the Big East, Liam McNeely might be out all of January with a high ankle sprain. At least, Matt, that's what Dan Hurley hinted at. I think he might be trolling us a little bit and yanking people's chains. Oh, woe is us. We might not have him for a month, but we'll see. We'll see. He was in a boot last night in their loss at Villanova.
Yeah, common theme for coaches with, we'll call it privilege, Kai, sort of kind of losing perspective of their advantages. I'm going to find myself being very, very homerish for mid-majors in the tournament this year, just as a kind of as a precursor to March. Very, very biased. So expect that, fans. Sorry.
There's a lot of sour grapes going around, Matthew.
Yeah, that's kind of part of my frustration when I mentioned off the top of the...
Yeah. Come on.
Sour grape season. Malik Renew might be out for a while for Indiana. We don't know the exact timetable, but Matthew, your guys have kind of stumbled backwards into the best version of the team with Mbako at the 4, more shooting on the floor, Ballo dominating, more driving lanes, etc. Will this continue when Renew returns? That's the question, but Indiana is playing very well right now.
Yeah, it's kind of like, Jim, when I want George, my dog, to stop barking, and I have to kind of, he won't do it if you give him some clues, but if you put like his chew stick right in front of him, aka you take away the only option to then now choose your best lineup, Mike Woodson, lo and behold, a good thing happens. And that's where we're at. So I hope Malik Reneau's healthy. I also hope that his sidelined absence continues to prompt Mike Woodson to look at what's happened the last 2 games. Good things offensively, dominant performances.
Yeah,
More of the
they should
same.
continue playing
Stick with it.
Mr. Carlisle less too. Look at his
And that's
stats,
it.
folks.
Yeah, as an aside, I
He's
agree. Yeah.
been horrible. But he's started to fall out of the rotation a little bit. And again, that's also helped. They are rolling. They've won 5 in a row. They were plus 200 to make the tournament like a week ago. I'm going to guess that's going to trend up closer and closer to even, given the way they're playing 4-1 in the Big Ten. None of these are huge wins at this point.
Yeah, they have the easiest schedule so far in the Big Ten. They've played 18th schedule.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Their next 9 games are KenPom Tier A, so essentially quad 1 games. We're going to find out what the Hoosiers are made of coming up. Staying in the Big Ten, Kasparis Yakichonis had a mysterious left forearm injury that caused him to miss the Penn State game. Did not matter. The Illini completely savagely blasted Penn State unceremoniously, which is surprising considering Penn State's given them problems in the past. Maybe it doesn't matter for Illinois. Maybe they've got enough talent given that performance. But Kai, I think to access their ceiling, they need him. Underwood was very mysterious post-game about it. If we have him, we have him. If we don't, then we don't.
Right.
Hard to tell what this is going to be. Maybe it's just a short-term one-game thing. That's kind of the hope.
Yeah, I mean, insane performance regardless. If they can do that without him, this team's way better than I thought, and I already think they're way better than I thought. So I'm not sure what the ceiling is for Illinois if they're capable of this performance without their best player.
Illinois is insane.
Michael Jordan.
They're insane. They're
insane.
Awesome.
They're insane. To
White
quote the great
flag
Michael Jordan,
waved.
Kai, the ceiling is the roof.
Yes.
The ceiling is the roof. So, other random news and notes. Matthew, one more little note tidbit for your squads. Cooper Flagg took the internet by storm with a monster dunk against Pitt. This was getting talk on like national TV shows, breaking into the NBA discussions, breaking through NFL playoff breakdowns. That's how big this highlight was, which, hey, I love that for Mr. Flagg. Get our sport discussed. I also sneaky love Diaz Graham's reaction. Like, Flagg kind of screamed towards his face, and he didn't get all butthurt about it. He just kind of like walked away, gave Flagg a tap on the back. It's like, yeah, I jumped with you. You dunked on me.
It was
All
a good guy
that's
move.
Cool. It was a real good guy move.
Yeah, I mean, just insane. I saw some people talking about the player of the year race is getting interesting. I think this is, I think the front runner at this point is probably Jedi Broom, correct? Yes. Eric Dixon. Eric Dixon. I wanted to talk about Eric Dixon.
Actually,
Good. I thought I saw that. Yes, I had more thoughts on your thought, but it's a fascinating race. I'm glad we have some competition with some elite teams, elite prospects. After Zach Edey kind of dominated the whole thing for 2 years.
Yep, indeedy. And we'll finish Roots Roundup on a super positive note, about as positive as you can find. Dick Vitale, one of the figureheads of college basketball, is declared cancer-free in his most recent checkup. Even said he could go back to the sideline. I don't know if this means we're going to get Dickie doing games. That's probably a stretch, considering it was his vocal cords. But just such a heartwarming bit of news here for the sport to see him excited, and kind of the whole college community on Twitter and X rally around this and just kind of prop him up. So thank you, Dickie V, for that positive update, and we're continuing to root for you. That's it, Kai. That is it for Roots Roundup here. I'll kick it back over to you for We've Saw That.
We've saw that. So many things to discuss from the past week. Of course, we'll give you our thoughts. We're going to give you more general, I would say big, maybe headline-grabbing things that we noticed that maybe you should be aware of as well, as I definitely change the prompter on our side of our screen. Perfect. No more undefeateds, folks. That's the headline. Kentucky beat Florida in what was one of the best games of the entire year, maybe the best game of the year. If you wanted NBA-like feel to a game in college basketball without the NBA, Kentucky, Florida, that game was amazing. Both teams scored over 100. Both teams are incredible. Florida turned around and beat Tennessee at Florida. Fellas, the Gators, this is a title contending team. The eye test is passed with flying colors every time I see them. And I thought that about Tennessee, and I kind of think that about Kentucky, too. It really is incredible how good the SEC is. And then finally, Jim, Alabama smokes Oklahoma in a revenge tour from 2023. Oklahoma, the last remaining undefeated from that 3-man group. Yeah, incredible stuff. It all happened in the SEC. This conference is loaded.
Yeah, I think actually Tennessee was the final remaining one.
You're right. Yeah, I meant the list I was listing, but you're correct.
Yeah,
Tennessee was the final undefeated. Yes.
Yeah, so pop bottles, all the 1971 teams that went undefeated. I'm sure they're still celebrating that. Kai, a funny Field 68 related headline. I think they put on their Instagram like, "Is Florida the best backcourt in the country?" And somebody replied, "No, it's UNC, but Florida has the best backcourt for a good team." And I was like,
what does that mean?
if UNC is a better backcourt, shouldn't the team be good? There's no way that the front court is so debilitatingly bad that it rips the best backcourt down into being bad. No, it's just incredible logic from, whatever 13-year-old probably commented that. But I had to laugh.
It was Tyler Hansbrough.
It might have been. Not that he's watched Florida.
In Big Ten news, wow. Oh, yeah, I almost got my conferences confused, of course, because these conferences are crazy. Michigan swept the Los Angeles trip. Yes, there's a Los Angeles trip in the Big Ten. By a combined 30 points, took down UCLA and then USC, or reverse that order. Illinois, likewise, swept the Pacific Northwest trip, taking down Oregon and Washington. They smoked Oregon, beat them by over 30 points, or around 30 points, on their home floor. The Illini, Matthew, yes, it's time to really lay down.
Crown them.
And
want to crown the ass?
Show your belly. Yeah, crown them. What do you think?
I was trying to find the Dennis Green quote.
You want
to crown their ass? Crown their ass. Yeah, no, they're amazing. I don't know what else to say. Like, they're incredible. The highest ceiling in the Big Ten for sure. I still think I'm going to stick with my Michigan State pick to win the league. Sure. I think I'm going to stick by that. But Illinois a little younger. You maybe have a few trip ups on the road, but the Oregon game was the most impressive 30 minutes of basketball I've watched all season, and it isn't close. Like, that's how awesome they were. And I don't think, Oregon didn't play as bad as people probably perceived. Their defense was bad, but I think that was more Illinois making them look bad, both in the half court and in transition. And their defense is what's been so impressive. Anyway, sorry, Jim. That's all I have. Illinois, good stuff. A lot of good stuff.
Yeah. No, the defense is what popped last night against Penn State. They didn't have Yakuchonis.
Right.
It was an 80 possession game, so 91-52 is way more indicative of a defensive performance than it is offensive. They do a terrific job of making the right people take bad shots. Like, all right, you're a bad shooter. We're going to let him fire away from deep. They force good players into tough mid-rangers. I think Ace Baldwin took 9 floaters in that game. He also looked. Somebody in our Discord said, did he take mushrooms before this game? And I can't really dispute it. He was terrible. But Illinois has been able to do that to teams over and over now. And the game against Oregon was fantastic, turning around 48 hours later and holding up against Washington, kind of making a comeback. They only get Michigan once in league play, and it's in Ann Arbor. That's kind of a bummer for them. But they're going to be right there. As Matt said, I also am with them. Like, highest ceiling, when they access that, they have the highest ceiling of a Big Ten team.
Yeah, it's hard to argue that. Big 12 teams. How about Arizona sweeping its first trip to the East at Cincy, at West Virginia? Boom, boom. Are the Wildcats back? Yes or no, Jim?
Yeah, I think so. I think they're kind of starting to put more heft to the analytically strong resume, and I'm sure they enjoyed getting revenge on West Virginia from Atlantis when they lost in overtime. I think they're pretty good. Also, it helps that KJ Lewis is really asserting himself more. Jaden Bradley is starting to assert himself more. It's not just the Caleb Love show, and I think that should hopefully give them a little more consistency through Big 12 play.
Yeah, I believe Caleb Love's been pretty good in the last couple conference games. Well, you know what? He's been okay. He had a good game against TCU, Matthew. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, he was actually inefficient the last 2 wins, but I think he does play good defense. Like, I think when he's dialed, you can clearly see he's a good defender. He buys in, and he wasn't gunning. He was 1 of 5 from 3 against West Virginia, 2 of 8 from 3 against Cincy, but not shooting him out of the game, which I think if he just avoids the bad Caleb Love, he's fine, right? Inefficient Caleb Love is okay. They can still win with him engaged, but they can't win with the Caleb Love goes off on his own little journey, and in teams, I think smart teams bait him into that. You saw that last year. Just avoid that track, and I think he's fine. This team's still very good.
Texas Tech swept the Mountain Road Trip, the Utah BYU Road Trip, the Beehive State. Texas Tech, good, glad. Are they back? Yes or no?
They're
Yeah.
not quite back.
Okay.
Even their own fans are like, we're going to wait till this weekend to see
Fair
if we
enough.
can compete with Iowa State. They get Iowa State and Lubbock, and
Yeah,
that will be a little more telling.
fair enough. And then Northwestern, let's talk about that actually after this. First of all, UNC game. They beat Notre Dame on a 4-point play in the final 10 or so seconds. Shrewsbury, Notre Dame's up 3. Not only we can not talk about the foul up 3 thing, whatever. Not only do you not foul up 3, you foul up 3 when the guy's shooting the ball. He makes free throw. UNC beats Notre Dame. The Irish were looking pretty good in the ACC had they won that game. It's very unfortunate. UNC gets an enormous win for their resume in terms of not losing to teams not named Duke. So Tar Heels, good job. Irish, disappointed.
Yeah, Notre Dame then lost by 1 last night to NC State. Like they're on a little bit of a tough string of luck, and that's with Marcus Burton back.
Yep.
He returned and was supposed to give him a boost, but yeah, you don't like it when your brainiac Princeton transfer Matt Alaco commits the cardinal sin of fouling a jump shooter in that final 8 or so seconds, and that's Cadeau gets the free throw to go up by 1, and Burton can't put the finishing touches on it. So I think Notre Dame's a little snake bitten right now.
He's book smart, Jim, not street smart. Book smart. Difference.
And then finally, Northwestern getting screwed by the goaltend rule at Penn State. So the refs called a goaltend, would have tied the game. They waved it off after review. Northwestern could have gotten the rebound easily and had a putback and would have scored anyways. But because of this stupid rule, it results in 0 points for Northwestern. It's a wild thing that this rule exists. There's not one person that agrees that this is a good rule, and yet it's the rule. I don't know who makes these rules and approves them because they don't make any sense. You have one job to do, Jim. You have one job to do, and you failed.
I can't fathom how these don't get fixed when it's so obvious to everybody watching the sport that they're bad and wrong. Like I think this rule was made with good intentions. It was like a late game non-goaltend call, and they were like, all right, let's just make sure we get them all right. So if they call it, then we can always review it and check.
Ridiculous.
But the unintended consequences of the team losing the possession that they would have had if you just let it go, that's been the issue. I wish they could just play advantage. If the team gets the ball back and scores, then you don't have to call it, whatever, don't worry about it. If the team doesn't get the ball back, then you call it. You go back and look at it later. That works, but there's not logic and rationality in that rule, and it drives me nuts. It's kind of the same with like late game reviews. Everybody that watching the game sees it's wrong and it's a problem, except the people who apparently have the power to change it because we go every offseason and they do nothing about it.
Yeah, and you're in the situation now where refs are calling more goaltending because they want to err on the side of caution so they can review it later, which just makes more reviews and makes it more unfortunate situations happen like this. It's just insane.
You give them a crutch and they're gonna use it. You give them a crutch, they're gonna use it. And they keep doing it in the final minute of games, even when it's a 100% clear and obvious out of bounds off one team. They're like, let's go look at it. Oh, we better. No, just be confident in your call. We don't have to look at everything. Don't do it.
I appreciated how well Collins handled it in the post game. Like he was very like, yeah, it happened. It's the rule. I get it. And I think he mentioned how they got the benefit of the doubt in the same like it was last year. Yeah. So
whatever. We'll rant about it for you, Chris.
Good guy.
It's dumb.
Got your back.
Good guy, Chris.
In other news, 2 Power 5 teams scored over 1.5 points per possession. That's really good. That's really hard to do. Texas Tech at Utah and Wisconsin against Iowa. Yeah, that Badgers game, man. Holy cow, they were on fire.
Yeah, I made a preseason bet with somebody in the Discord that Iowa would be a top 75 defense. I said they would not be. This game was very helpful for my side. Yes. Yeah, giving up 21 of 31 from deep to the Badgers was really going to benefit my cause there.
Finally, bad loss section. UCF. Look, they lost to Kansas, but they were 7 for 38 from 2 and lost by 51 points. Finally, good. Now, I'm not like doing schadenfreude here, Matthew, taking joy in others' pain, but we did make our worries quite clear on UCF and this roster build, and they looked really good to start. Now it's kind of coming back down to earth a little bit.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I'm not.
You're
I'm
not making
holding
your
out.
laps yet. Okay.
I'm. No, I'm not. I'm not. Give me a few more. I need a few more data points.
They're actually in
More
pretty
data
good shape
points.
for the tournament, I think, right now.
I think they are right. Yeah. Bracket Matrix has them at. Is that by
Yeah,
the way? Is
they're
Bracket Matrix reliable yet? At what point is Bracket
Not
Matrix?
yet.
Can I look at it?
I wouldn't say
Okay.
yet.
yeah, they're still 2-1 in the Big 12, but now they got the Arizona trip. And then so they go to Arizona and then they have home Houston at Iowa State. Like there's
Test.
it's entirely possible they're about to lose 4 games in a row. We'll see. But yeah, Kai, per Matt Winnick on Twitter, this no team had ever shot this poorly on this many twos in a game in the last 15 years.
Amazing. And then Dayton. What's up with Dayton? Just lost to UMass last night. Lost to George Washington before that. That's terrible. The A10 is one of the most unpredictable conferences year after year. The top is usually around the same, but there's always surprises that make no sense to me. Jim, good stat for you. Anthony Grant, 15 sub 200 losses in 7.5 years at Dayton. I was trying to do in my head. That's bad, right? I think that's bad.
It's really bad. So
Yeah.
the like Brian Gregory in 8 years before had 3 losses outside the top 300 in 8 seasons, and then the coach before in like 5.5 had 3 losses too. So like as good as Grant has been, he's been super prone to these horrible losses. I'm trying to find who in the Discord had that stat. But yeah, I mean it's really bad. They're like it's time. Is it time to get rid of him? I think that's probably a little far,
Yeah.
but
No.
man, it
Hey,
Matt, I don't remember Matt if we ever virtually handshook on my VCU finishes higher in KenPom and the A10 standings, but I'm sure that ship has sailed for you. I don't think you're gonna back the
Yeah. No.
Flyers
I'm
anymore.
back. I think I would have gone to bat for my Blurs actually, which is looking even more ominous at this point. Injuries playing a part there, but yeah, part of I actually had a thought here just as a tease. High or conference conundrum, high major, and I think teams like Dayton and Memphis are the two examples where it's just like two really strong programs, and VC you can put in that mix too, right? Like, and I'm sure Slew fans think they belong there. Like very strong, high end tournament caliber teams that play in good conferences, but like in that awkward, not good enough, where there's just more landmines in the conference playing field, and there are actual opportunities to boost resume beef. And I think Dayton's finding that out, and it sucks when you have everyone's target on your back. Again, Memphis being the shining example, but Dayton being a victim of that too, because there's a lot of good depth in the A10, despite some early. I mean, St. Joe's is 1-2, 10-6 overall. That's obviously a dangerous team. Like, you know what I mean? So it just sucks that like you go on the road to St. Joe, it's going to be a nothing burger win, but everyone knows that St. Joe would pick off plenty of Big Ten teams at home, right, on a random February or January. So sucks.
The credit Parlay P on Twitter, Parlay Pile, Dayton contributor to A10 Talk. That's where that Anthony Grant stat came from.
well, Matt, let's get into three-man thoughts. What do you say?
Let's do it. No, I'm gonna go. I'm last in rotation here.
Okay, you can last rotation. I will do
Yeah.
a wonderful ad read
Do
from
your
our
player? Do your ad read. Let's do player of the year. You start off. I have a few additions to
player of the year. Okay, we'll start with that. Home Field Apparel. That is our sponsor. We love Home Field Apparel. Today, actually, I'm not wearing a Home Field Apparel shirt, which is rare because I rarely go a day without wearing one because I have 7 million Home Field shirts. They make the best premium collegiate apparel for schools of all sizes, from the big dogs to the small dogs. They dig through years of archives to understand each school's fan base, each school's history, and they make thoughtful designs. They put them on a shirt, and they say, here, buy our shirts. Hoodies, joggers, dad hats, other hats, zip-ups, bomber jackets. They got them all. They print these unique designs on the most comfy tees and sweatshirts you'll ever own, right out of their office in the heartland of college basketball, Indiana, although there's some debates. Is it now Connecticut? Well, right now it's Indiana. Go to homefieldapparel.com today to shop your school. If they don't have your school, send them a tweet. I saw one of our followers on Twitter sent them a tweet and said, get us some St. Mary's gear. I hope they follow through with that. That's at Homefield, APPARL on Twitter. Get 15% off your first purchase from Homefield using our promo code 3MW. Homefieldapparel.com. That's Homefield. Wear one for the team. Okay. Three-man thoughts. Here we go. Matthew wants me to start off with the Player of the Year race. And this was really gauged towards KenPom Player of the Year, but it pretty much goes hand in hand with the actual National Player of the Year race. Yeah, it turns out his analytics are pretty good like that. Edie's been number one the last 2 years in KenPom. Hey, he won the Player of the Year 2 years in a row. What do you know? So a little check-in here. The leader right now, no surprise, it's Janai Broom. He is, I would say, the runaway favorite in actual college basketball. You could argue maybe Flag is closer than that, but Broom now has the narrative behind him. I hear announcers and other talking heads talk about him as the player of the year constantly. Auburn is clear, maybe not clearly, but I think the best team in the country. He is having a fantastic season on both ends of the floor. It is funny, though, Cooper Flag is 2 in KenPom Player of the Year. He's also, by rating, by KenPom's little Player of the Year rating, having one of the best seasons since that stat started 11 years ago. He just happens to be behind Janai Broom. So Cooper Flag is having a Player of the Year caliber season. He's just right behind Broom. Matthew, did you want to jump in on those two guys? You want me to keep going?
Well, I want to make Eric Dixon was sort of the centerfold of my discussion here.
He's number 7.
And I'm sort of
on KenPom.
I'm tooting my own horn. I know that.
8.
Number 8. Okay, yeah.
Is he 8 now? Did it just change like 10 minutes ago?
He dropped after last night, apparently. But yeah, I mean, he didn't have like a home run Dixon game. He just had a
it's funny.
Run of the mill 24-8 type of game.
I had this written down before last night. I kind of thought he would have an awesome game last night. He was still very good. He was the MVP. I mean, KenPom MVP. It was not very efficient though. It was kind of an ugly game. But still, Nova gets one over UConn, and I think we're all of the belief that Nova is quote unquote back. Whatever that means, we'll see if they dug too much of a hole in the non-con. We'll see how many. Again, Big East is not great this year. There's not a ton of beef opportunities in league play, but I just think the race is as deep as ever. And you're looking at, Eric Dixon, who I was like, man, this guy is like real value to bet on in the player of the year market. But it's like, crap, is he even the best player in his own league? Because, Cam Jones still plays in that league. And I mean, he's been pretty awesome this season too. So yeah, I just think it's I think Dixon would be, we'll see how, if Nova ends up making the tournament, and he's averaging like 25 or whatever the hell it is a game. It's crazy that he's going to probably not even be a serious contender because of how good Broom's been and how good that team's been and how good Flag's been and how good that team's been. Because I think we're starting to see some elite teams emerge to the top of the totem pole. I think we all thought this would be a year with a lot of really, really good teams, but like Auburn and Duke are sort of bleeding into like, holy crap, these teams are juggernauts. And I think that type of team dominance is going to overshadow a lot of really, really, really good players in the player of the year discussion that are on really good teams, like Marquette, really, really good team, but not nearly at the cachet of Duke and Auburn with the way they're playing right now.
Your team has to be like top 5 team, top 10 at the very least to win player of the year. Yeah.
Yeah. You look back through it, the seed of the team of the guy that won it, it's like 1, 2,
it's all top 2. Yeah.
1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1. Yeah. Bogut won it when they were a 6 seed back in 2005. I think somebody else might have won it. Like McDermott was a 3 seed, but it's 1 or 2 seed, like basically every time.
Dixon somehow is still underrated. Like this guy's good. He is impossible to guard because he's kind of fast, and he's kind of fast, but he's really strong. So big guys have zero chance on him. Like Samson Johnson got destroyed on one of the layups at the end of the game. It was insane. Yes,
he shoots from like third. I mean, his range is crazy this year. Yes. Like it's not just like on the pick and pop on the line threes. It's like deep 3 feet behind, just 2 seconds into the shot clock, he will pull. And he's 47%, 50 of 106 this year. I need to look at his CBB analytics shot chart shows like he's not just taking them on the line, like they're deep, real range stretching threes. So yeah, he's awesome. Just
his issue for like the KenPom player of the year stuff is A, the team, B, he's not like a stat sheet stuffer. Like Broom and Flag block shots, they get steals.
Defensively, he's not quite the impact
on
player.
Their teams.
Right.
He's also like the 7th best defensive rebounder on his team. Like he doesn't really fill the box score, and you want those more wide-ranging contributions. But he's like the best scorer in college basketball. No surprise I think he's leading the country in scoring. He's unstoppable from that perspective.
Just rounding out the KenPom player of the year list here. Cam Jones is 3. Mentioned Cam Jones. Hunter Dickinson, number 4. Surprising maybe because the narrative around him is so poor. All I hear is that Hunter Dickinson's bad and overrated. Like,
everyone's just sick of him.
He's still an All-American.
Yeah, well, it's just fatigue. It's Hunter fatigue.
I don't like the
My
guy
question
either.
is,
he's an All-American.
Yeah, to Jim's point, he puts up big time blocks, rebounds galore. At this point, you can question, does he impact winning as much as KenPom projection indicates. I think on that Kansas team with some depth of up front, I think he does. But still, yeah, it's just Dickinson fatigue. We're all just sick of it. Like, graduate, dude. Come on.
Dickinson has a higher offensive rebound rate than Dixon does defensive. Like that matters a little bit. Yeah.
Matt's boy, PJ Haggerty from Memphis, number 5 in KenPom Player of the Year race. Yes,
crazy.
Good call that he would be pretty good this season. Braden Smith is number 6. He's kind of been quiet in media circles now. He pretty hyped to start the year, and no one's really talking about Braden Smith and Purdue, but they're still there. Still a pretty good team.
Yeah, I remember preseason people asked us if we'd rather have Caleb Love or Braden Smith.
Yep.
I think we said Love. That was wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably draft Smith, but I think at the time I said Love was a better player, which I don't know if that's true or not. Probably not. Chaz Lanier is number 7 now. Yeah, egg on my face for doubting him. I think we all had our doubts about him translating to the SEC. He's been fine. He's been perfectly fine. He finally had one dud game.
Yeah, he just hadn't had a bad shooting game all year, and finally had one.
It's crazy. Back to the player that you're putting the side by side of Connect and Lanier stats is like, oh wow, and then we had Connect as like the kind of the face of college basketball for part of last season, and Lanier is like a footnote in this player of the year discussion this season. So again, deep field this season. Javon
Small, the biggest surprise on this list, number 9. He's never been on a winning team at East Carolina or Oklahoma State, and now all of a sudden he's among the better players in the country, carrying a shorthanded West Virginia squad without their supposed best player on one of the most surprising teams in the country. So this is a shocking inclusion so far. Javon Small, good job so far.
I think if we had ranked Javon Small in our top 100, people would be like, you idiots, What are you talking about?
Yes, and probably.
Here it is. Yep.
And then finally, Graham Ike, Gonzaga. Yep, Graham Ike, still a solid player, number 10. Again, not a guy.
System player, Kai.
Yeah,
system
player. Yeah, sure. That's the top 10. It's Broom's race unless Auburn has an epic collapse. I mean, Duke's going to go undefeated in the ACC. Flag could make a case for it, and he has the number 1 pick cachet. But I think it's Broom's to lose right now.
It's wild Ike's that high. He's not in their top 5 in minutes for Gonzaga. It's just he's
funny.
Hyper productive when on the floor. High usage. They feed him. Yeah, it's crazy.
All right, I'm passing off to Jim, I think, for his first thought.
Jim, do you have a conference one?
Yeah, apparently Matt's waiting to go last. But yeah, I almost put Duke in the we saw that, but I decided to kind of evolve it into its own thought. Just the complete and utter dominance of the ACC inspired this thought. This is just teams that are projected to win their leagues by 3+ games. Again, I'm going to focus mainly on Duke, but I'll list the other ones. Duke is projected to win the ACC by 5 games right now. A projected record of 19-1, a 36% chance to go undefeated in the league. It's absurd. They have 1 conference game remaining with a less than 80% chance to win. That is at Clemson. That's at 77%. They do play Illinois in Madison Square Garden. That's like 75% chance to win. Ooh, only 3/4 of the time. But that obviously does not impact the ACC dominance. They've just had this incredible crescendo of a year where their defense is mega elite and the offense has come along for the ride, and the rest of the league is not very good. And that's how you get this 5-game gap in projected standings.
Feels like they're realizing their potential a lot earlier than the last couple of years for Shire teams. I feel like the last couple of years has been March. We're getting there. This year it's like, oh, we're here. They are as dominant as projected.
Yep. I think the theme, we've talked about this. We probably should make this a fully baked thought at some point, but just the emergence of like the too big interior size, the quest for size, and how important rim pressure is with bigs, especially now because so many if you can find really good bigs that have skill, and obviously Cooper Flag's a unicorn, so you're not going to like replicate that strategy elsewhere, right? But I mean, Duke's defense, 86.1 defensive rating, Houston's 86.7, Tennessee 86.9, and then the 3-point gap to number 4 defense, which is Kansas and UCLA and Illinois, St. John's, San Diego State. Iowa State's actually 9th. So like the defense being so elite is just like is what's underpinning this whole thing, which we talked about preseason. And I think just again the theme is the emergence of the too big dynamic with just mondo size at the 10, whether it's defensive rim protection or offensive rebounding, rim running. I mean, look at what Florida's doing right now, right, with their size up front. So yeah, props to Shire. Again, not going to give him like a a bunch of gold stars. He has an insane collection of talent,
Exactly.
but he didn't get that talent.
He has
so
the most
I don't know.
talented roster in the country. You apologize to Shire yet? Not yet, because he has the most talented roster in the country.
Yeah, and we're not going to learn a whole ton going through the ACC. I mean, keep blowing people out, keep doing what you're supposed to do. We credit that, but Shire wasn't there, and they won by 27 at SMU. Like it's the team is so incredibly good right now, and part of the credit does go to him. We've never doubted him as a recruiter, a roster builder. He is elite at that, always has been. But we'll see. We'll see if in a real X and O type of battle with another high level coach, can he win that? Because quite frankly, I don't think he won those against Mark Pope and Bill Self. I think he got out coached in those games. So we'll see again as the competition finally stiffens later in March. We'll get a good gauge on that. Okay, other dominant conference teams. Super shocked by Auburn being projected to win the SEC by 3 games.
Yeah.
As good as that league is, Auburn is second, but you've also got other top 10 KenPom teams. But the big part of it is they play Florida once at home, Tennessee once at home, Mississippi State once at home. That really helps. The schedule sets up well for the Tigers. I just had to dive into that. I was shocked that in such an incredible league to see Auburn projected to win by 3 games was stunning.
Yeah, that's it. It's the scheduling. Because I agree. I'm shocked as well. This league is a gauntlet. I'm very excited to watch the rest of the year.
Yep. In the American, Memphis is projected to win by 3 games. They're 51 spots ahead of number 2 North Texas in the conference. It's a really sad year for the American. Number 3 team in the league, FAU, is barely in the top 100 at 100th. It's a far cry from what it was last year when Matt would go to bat for them on basically every episode.
Well, every coach listened to our podcast and was like, oh man, this guy's onto something. And then they went and took all the good players, like even players on, like the UTSA thing, right? All of those dudes on like the worst team in the league are at pretty good places right now. And actually most of them are making pretty good impact. So yes, a certainly an unfortunate down year for the Patriotic League, the other Patriotic League.
A couple non-surprising ones. Gonzaga is projected to win by 3 games. They're still 29 spots ahead of St. Mary's, but actually that was before they had a little bit of a dud against San Diego last night, only won by 13. The Gales are coming. I think you could do worse than St. Mary's 10-1 to win that
I
conference.
agree, Jim. I had that as a...
I will be interested. I probably will place that wager after we finish recording this because I took a look at it right before we recorded.
Both games in February. St. Mary's getting better. I agree. Just a note.
Yep. The ASUN, Lipscomb's projected to win by 4 games. They're 75 spots clear of number 2 North Alabama. They're dominant. Conference USA, Liberty, still projected to win by 3 games despite starting 1-1, and there are a couple 2-0 teams in that league. They're 56 spots ahead of Western Kentucky, the number 2 team in their league. That one I think could turn into a little bit more of a brawl. Liberty, also without Matt's boy, Isaiah Enan right now, that's limiting them a little bit.
There's 2.5 real teams there, Jim. Liberty, Western Kentucky is scary talented. Kai, I know you're in on the tops as well. Louisiana Tech, if they ever get William Jeffers back, they'll be good. They'll be fine.
What's wrong with that team, Matthew?
If they get Jeffers back, they'll be fine.
Look at their last
they'll be fine.
2 or
They'll be
3
fine.
results.
Be patient.
Look at
they
their
got
last
killed
2 or 3
on the.
results.
They got smacked at the UTEP trip. I mean, God, lost it by 30 to the Hootens.
Yeah.
Tough.
Really, really bad. And Sam Houston State's just like debilitated by
I know.
Like, they have 7 healthy guys left.
Mudge. Poor Mudge.
Poor guy. Central Connecticut State, totally dominant in the NEC. They are 102 spots ahead of the number 2 team in that league, Stonehill. It's, they've lapped the field there. McNeese, as per usual, 95 spots ahead of their biggest challenger in the Southland. They're projected to win by 4 games. And Grand Canyon, I think the narrative around them is they're having a down season and it's not quite up to what people expected as an at-large contender. But they're 50 spots ahead of number 2 Seattle and projected to win the WAC by 3 games still. So the Antelopes are probably going to be fine in the long term. That's it. That's my conference dominant thought. Matthew, now we pivot over to you.
Yep. Just over to my thought, which is a conference thought, sort of in 2 parts. One is like I was kind of teasing, it's like the hybrid mid-high major conundrums where, I think you can put the American in this, although the league's just sort of down this season, so maybe it doesn't quite qualify. But I think, again, the Memphis and Daytons of the world, I also kind of thought St. Mary's might fall into this, right? WCC is kind of in that no man's land of league caliber. But this year, that league actually has some teams that did some work in the non-con, and so there's actually good opportunities to build at-large worthy wins in conference, where I think in the past years, St. Mary's was like, okay, we just can't lose, and we got to maybe beat Gonzaga, and then we're going to be fine. But, Bennett's done a good job scheduling. All that said, I just think you're starting to see this development of the chasm widening between the true power conferences, right? And like these very good conferences, but not power conferences, and the path to at-large berth being harder than ever. Again, I think we'll see how the selection process evolves over time. I know there's some wins against the bubble discussion upcoming on a thought here. The more we can pivot to that, the more we can understand the value of winning on the road and the value of winning at a high rate against middling to bad teams. That is the part of, I think, the selection process that's undervalued at this point, and why I think teams like Dayton and Memphis, Dayton more so, right? But teams like that sort of are at a disadvantage, because I think you rack up so many of those wins, and you kind of discount taking care of business at the expense of being mystified by the Q1A wins or the number of Q1 wins, so 6-9 against the Q1. Yeah. It's like, okay, well, you got to lose it, right? So I don't know. The Dayton thing's a bummer. I want to say it bummed me out, because I love Dayton. I love this team. The Anthony Grant, Malachi Smith thing. It's just a cool story. And after the whole Maui glow up, I hate that now they're back in the same A10 gauntlet with the target on their back, and they've taken 2 losses, and it's just annoying. Like, George Washington, go away. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't like, I want you to be good. I'm just not in on this whole
Caputo's playing for that Miami job, man.
That's right. That's right. He's earned it. After that one, he's earned it for sure. So yeah, just kind of a quick part. So that's part 1 of my thought. And then part 2 of my thought is
my comment on part 1 is
yes.
If you're going to get credit for taking care of business, you have to take care of business. You can't drop the GW UMass back-to-back, Dayton. You're not going to get credit for that.
We'll see. Like, if they finish 14 and
4 in the league gets them in. I think
okay.
The non-conference work is good enough, but that requires a pretty buzzsaw finish to the end here, based on not a lot of indicators they're going to get there, considering the start.
Correct. Yeah. And they got to go to 2 VCU and 2 St. Bonnie's as well. But yeah, still bummer. I hate it. So part 2 of my thought, the Big Bad West. I think we talked about it. I just want to make sure we put it to the forefront of this podcast, how good this league is. And I think is sort of a lesson to ADs. I know a lot of ADs listen to this podcast.
So many.
The caliber of coaching, as we've talked about, part of why the SEC has become so elite. Obviously, the money bags have helped clearly, but the coaching caliber in that league is just like an arms race of awesome coaches. The Big West is sort of the mid-major, I think, blueprint for that, right? Like, there are no bad coaches in that league. The coaches who don't really pass the sniff test, even guys like Dedrick Taylor who have had success, right? Rod Barnes who've had success. They feel like dinosaurs when you put them next to Russell Turner and Eric Olian at UC San Diego, a team that looks like a legitimate top 75 team. What our guy Andy Newman's doing at CSUN, what our guy Mike MacPayo's doing at UC Riverside. Even Gene Luss at UC Davis is a good coach. And
respect Mike DeGeorge at Poly. Respect
Mike DeGeorge is the most recent and most sterling example. Thank you. Just a great league. And I think, again, it's a guys who have won at levels below the D1 level are pretty good bets to win at this level, in my opinion, especially at the mid-major level, where you're not going to have personnel acquisition advantages like you have at the power conference level. So just a blueprint ADs and coaches to look to. Big West, good coaching produces winners at that level. That's all I have.
Very good, Matthew. Very good. I'm going to skip my in-depth KenPom thought for next week. Save that one and update it as such. I do want to get into poor coaching. This is a kind of a stream of consciousness thought I was working on last night, inspired by Billy Lang at St. Joe's. No offense to St. Joe's listeners. He's one of the worst coaches in the country. I'm not really sure how you can think otherwise when you look at talent the past 4 years and what they've actually done. The Duquesne game last night was truly atrocious in terms of everything, especially down the stretch. Now, there were some bad calls, and Duquesne played out of their butts, but anyways, I think Lang's ran out of his time in St. Joe's. But this thought's not all about Lang. It's about bad coaching in general. What do bad coaches do? What I wanted to start with was the 2-foul participation, because Jim notices too. In the Florida game, Walter Clayton picked up 2 fouls. Florida's best player. Ravitch and Dykes, Jimmy Dykes and Carl Ravitch, couldn't believe that Todd Golden was playing Walter Clayton with 2 fouls in the first half. It's the right thing to do. It's amazing to me that we still have coaches out there that don't realize that possessions in the first half are as meaningful as in the late game. And why would you sit your best player for an entire half? It makes no sense to me. Golden's ahead of the forefront there. And I was curious.
Yeah, Ravitch treated it like it was a crime. He was like, "Are you? Does he know he's doing? Oh, is he aware of this? Are we gonna have to tell the authorities? Like, oh my god!" It's like, relax, buddy. He can play with 2 fouls. He commits 2.5 fouls per 40 minutes. He's already committed 2. He's a fourth-year player. He knows what he's doing.
That's the key point. Is he trusts Clayton not to pick up a 3rd foul because he doesn't get fouls. That's the point. I did want to check. Hey, who has the lowest 2 foul participation this season? The bottom 5 this year in coaches: Steve Lutz at Oklahoma State, Greg Paulus at Niagara, Brian Dutcher, San Diego State, Hendo up in South Dakota State, and then I don't know if Miami counted necessarily, but Larinaga, Miami was last. I don't know if that's a mix between Larinaga and their current interim coach, but at the bottom ranks on the whole, there are a lot of older coaches. Calipari at 354th, no surprises. Dan Hurley, not an old coach, maybe an old school coach at 355th in 2 foul participation. Yep. There are caveats in here. I mean, Samson Johnson picks up 2 fouls every game and sits, so I think that's skewing that a little bit.
Yeah, he's not a guy you can trust to not pick up a 3rd.
But number one,
Kai, just real quick, Alabama. Like, I know Nate Oates. So we've been in that presser where he was like, he makes fun of coaches that sit their players with 2 fouls, and he's right. And so they're at 80th, but I think there is some noise in the numbers. Because I looked at this too, like a couple weeks ago, because you have, if there's deeper teams, you're more likely to sub with 2, right? Like Florida. Like, Walter Clayton's freaking awesome. Like, who is your backup to Walter Clayton? Yeah. I mean, there isn't one. So, like, even more incentive to not adhere to the old dinosauric rules, I guess.
Yeah. Washington State's up there. They've had injury issues. St. Louis is up there. They've had injury issues. Like, like, we kind of have to hope these guys don't get a 3rd.
But, right. This ranking doesn't imply, hey, you're a bad coach from the ranking. It's just interesting to see some trends.
It's an indicator. I think it's an indicator. I'm with you, though. I'm with you.
Number 1 2 foul participation right now is Tarleton State, Billy Gillespie. I don't think that's his normal strategy. His teams foul a ton. That's number 1, and then he has no depth this year with injury. So I think that's kind of an outlier for him. But hey, I could be wrong. Continuing bad coaching, a lack of offense and a lack of plan. I see so much isolation in in-game situations where the last play is simply guard dribbling the ball and then set a really late ball screen. It's just not innovative. Why would you use that as your best play in the middle of the game? Probably not. You'd probably drop a set and do something clever or that would probably work. It's not get the guy a ball screen, go one-on-one. That's always wondering. That's actually kind of like a pickup thing too, Jim. It's like you need one more basket. Okay, it's going to be the best player going one-on-one, not passing it, right? That's always like the mindset at the end of the game.
Yeah, I don't get it. Remember when people crapped their pants because Rick Byrd at Belmont had that panic backdoor play to win him a game?
Love that.
It's like, oh, they ran something that got a layup? It's like these guys are scared of – I don't get why you don't run something with 10 seconds left for, 6-second screener type thing or Spain pick and roll or something with a little more action off the ball, and then you can go ISO. But it's like, I guess with the isolation, they can control when the shot's taken more.
Sure.
But at some point, it's more important to get a good shot than it is to shoot with exactly 3.8 seconds left on the clock or whatever. Like, get a good look, please.
Yeah.
Yep. Agree.
In a similar vein, just not executing and having turnovers out of timeouts drives me nuts. Like, you see a turnover on inbounds play. It's like, what was the plan? What was the plan? Or getting a bad shot out of an inbounds play after a timeout. It's like, what's the plan? And then finally, rotations inspired by Dennis Gates at Mizzou, who maybe is figuring it out. But you got to know your rotations. You got to whittle it down to 8 guys. You have to know who's good on your team. Look at the analytics. I think some guys ignore this. I think Florida is fantastic at looking at actual impact of lineups. I think Alabama does it too. These teams are really good at the top of the country for a reason. They use stats. They use analytics. They know who's good and who's bad.
Yeah, I think Florida paid Klavzar a decent amount of money, the Slovenian guy, and they're like, he's not good yet. We're not going to play him.
Fantastic. Anyways, that's kind of my stream of consciousness coaching rant. Matthew or Jim, if you want to add on, go ahead.
I'll add to that. So my second thought here was a message to coaches. I think inspired by UC San Diego, kind of piggybacking off my Big West thought, and kind of transitioning off your thoughts. The power of zone in today's game, I think, I think zone defense is going to become an inefficiency that teams should really look to exploit. I think we heard, for example, on our Discord AMAs, right? We had Ryan Pannone come on, our Alabama assistant, talk about all the teaching that they do with their guys on an individual basis. I think all of the teaching and coaching off-season work is so much more individual now than it is team-based. And I think Kai goes to your point about the crunch time, bad execution. I think there's just less emphasis put on execution and more on player development and individual read and react stuff. I think that's just more of what translates to the higher level. It makes your players it's an easy, more marketable sell to get players as well. But I think you see the value of zone defense because a lot of these teams are so drilled in how they play off read and react, off ball screens, off situations that are more common in man-to-man defenses, that against zone defenses, there's just like no sort of like offenses, like just speaking of bad coaching, just basic zone offensive principles, like a guy at the high post, a guy at the baseline, like action screening the zone, cutting into space. Like, even Grant McCaslin talks about how they really struggled to solve BYU zone. And I thought, frankly, they did okay at it. Like they ended up winning the game, but they were trying to run like man-to-man action against zone defense. Like, what are we doing? Like Grant McCaslin's a great coach. So even at that level, you see some like, some shortcomings. So I think my point being, you look at what Utah State's doing, Gerald Calhoun, look at what Merrimack's doing in the NAAC. I know it's like a low major league. Like if you can come up with a very unique, best example is South Alabama, Richie Riley, right? They're running a crazy awesome zone this year, dominating teams. I think they could be one of the favorites in the Sun Belt. We'll see how it plays out. But like being different and playing non-man-to-man defenses, I think is a great inefficiency in this age of college basketball where all the teaching, all the coaching is individual and not team-based. Boom, bangs gavel.
Love it.
I tweeted something about this recently, Matt, like 3 nights ago. It's like, if you don't have it as a curveball, you got to
at least have something. Yes, at least in back pocket.
Defensively, like, oh man, this team has lit us up 4 possessions in a row. They look really comfortable. Play zone a little bit. I've seen it so many times just change a game where it takes a team totally out of rhythm. Like, it doesn't have to be your primary defense, and maybe it's dying as that. Like, teams running it 90% of the time is going to go away. But every team should run it like 6% of the time. If you're playing man 100% of the time, I don't get why. You should play some zone, have it as a wrinkle, have it as a curveball. It should be a part of your tool belt.
I was gonna say even Mizzou's crappy zone has worked a few times. Like, I don't know,
right? Yeah, I think it was great.
I don't think Mizzou even knows what they're doing in that zone defense because it's so weird. But it like confuses the other team on a few positions.
Yeah, the other team is like, why are you rotating there? What are you doing?
How about Oakland? The Greg Holt, remember that last year against Kentucky? That seemed to work out pretty well.
Yeah.
I mean, Elon, I know Elon has a 7'4" guy up front that's sort of making that zone work, but they're having a breakthrough year. They're playing zone, I think, at like the 10th highest rate in the country. Even Sanford does a lot of zone under Bucky. I know a lot, some it's pressy, but still, just a thought, coaches. I know you're listening. A thought.
Yeah, we like mix that in. We like to see it mixed in. Okay, Kai, should I go with? I'll just do one more thought.
Yeah, go for it.
I'll save my team A or team B for next week. The surprising WAB spots is my last thought here. Matt mentioned it a little bit. Wins against the bubble. Again, for those not familiar, it is supposed to be kind of all-in-one metric for accomplishments for your resume, what you have done. You're measured your win total against the expected win total against your schedule of a bubble caliber team. So if a bubble caliber team is expected to win 10.8 games against your schedule and you've won 12, you're plus 1.2. But if you've won 9, you're negative 1.8. So every game has a value. Every game matters, even if it's a game on the road at George Washington. Sorry, Dayton. But that game matters. Winning that game or losing that game makes a real incremental difference to your bubble profile. And I think it's a great tool. So, some surprising teams that are highly ranked in this metric. Marquette is 3rd. This is all per Bart Torvik's measurement of it, by the way. Oregon is 5th. So, really in the mix for very high seeds there, those two teams. Memphis 7th. Because they played such a tough schedule. Despite that home loss to Arkansas State, they're top 10 team in terms of wins above bubble. Utah State, Matt's zone darling, is 8th. Oklahoma, despite the 0-2 start to SEC play, is 13th. The Sooners could end up creating the weirdest bubble profile of all time if they go 6-12 in the SEC, or even 5-13, and are like 18-13, 19-12 with a bunch of really good non-con wins
Mhm.
and a couple of really good SEC wins. It's going to be an adventure with the Sooners. Arizona State, 27th, despite the loss to Kansas last night. They have actually been pretty solid so far this year. And Maddie, to your Big West point, UC Irvine's 39th, UC San Diego 43rd. We need a two-bid Big West.
Wow. Can you
The
imagine?
league is dangerous, so these teams will probably drop some surprising ones, but this is again a great tool for them because it will give them proper credit for winning at UC Riverside. Oh, that doesn't show up as a really great win on anybody's quadrant system, but it will incrementally, slowly but surely boost the profile. I would
Right.
love to see two teams get in.
Yeah, and Irvine's like, they lost at Duquesne. Like, it's like a committee was like, oh, that's so embarrassing. Like, Pitt would never lose at Duquesne. Like, well, I don't know. Like, maybe that was because they had a shitty schedule, and that's sort of the disadvantage of scheduling at that level, and it was on the road. Yeah, it's just that's frustrating. Like, because you look, there's always those eyesore games, like the Arkansas State game for Memphis. It's like Arkansas State's really good. Like, they played a bunch of good teams. Like, I don't think that shouldn't crush their tournament resume. It's one game.
Yeah, it's not saying Irvine going 14-1 is the same as, or 13-2 is the same as going 13-2 against a really hard schedule at the top, but it has them 40th. It puts them on the level with other bubble teams. And
Yeah.
I think if it stays that way all through Big West play, I'm going to be very thrilled that WAB is on the team sheet this year and will hopefully give people second thought of whether they should include some potential mid-major at larges. On the other end of the spectrum, some low teams that are surprisingly low. Gonzaga only 25th, despite playing a pretty tough schedule. They've taken some L's and going to have to tear through the WCC, which actually has more Q1 opportunities than usual. That they're going to need that for a high seed. Houston is 30th, team that has really outperformed its or has been a metrics darling, but has not won the games it needs to win. They need to do that in Big 12 play. Arizona 44th, same thing. Texas Tech 58th, same thing. Big 12, really going to need to get their big wins there. Maryland at 61st. I think they've been a little bit of a metrics darling, blowing out bad teams at home. Haven't quite gotten the wins. They went 0-2 in their trip to the Pacific Northwest. Not great for them. And BYU, 68th, not looking like a tournament team right now. Going to need to prove themselves in the gauntlet of a Big 12. Any thoughts on those teams, Kai or Matt?
I think WAB is great. It's a great inclusion for the team sheet. I hope it means something because the committee is still human at the end of the day. And I think old biases will still probably take over, and maybe WAB will not be like a major thing to start with, but I think it's a really good step in the right direction.
Yeah, we're not
Utah
in that.
State.
We're not in that committee room. It's mostly 80s that are 65 years old.
Yeah, and frankly, don't watch the sport the entire year, unfortunately.
No, the Utah State thing's great. I almost included them in because the Mountain West this season is sort of in that awkward high major turf because they've sort of taken a slight step back, and people are not going to be taking that conference wins as seriously as last year when they got 4 or 5 bids, and but they've been magnificent. Like I love that they are represented very strongly here because the only thing they've done wrong is lose to UC San Diego at home, which is pretty crazy. But that's not a bad loss. Again, to our point, that's not a terrible loss. Not a good loss, but not a terrible loss.
Yes, indeed. All right, yep, that's it. Let's get into weekend previews, Mr. McEwen.
Yes, sir. Let's do it. Let's start off with UCLA and Maryland on Friday. So I write down my timestamp. Thank you. Big Big Ten matchup here. Yes, Jim mentioned Maryland is off 2 straight losses to Pacific West foes. Will they get another one? Pacific West, Pacific Northwest foes. They get another Pacific foe in the form of the Bruins, who are coming to town all the way across the country. The worst travel imaginable. I guess Maryland just did it the other way. Cronin just called out his players. Both very good defenses here. Maryland handles the ball. You got to do that against UCLA. Matthew, who do you take in this one? Both kind of, I say, exceeding expectations a little bit, especially Maryland. This is a huge game for them.
I think UCLA wins this game and like a back against the wall. Cronin runs his team for 1,000 suicides. They puke for 2 straight days and they just go in and play like savages at College Park. That's my gut. However, Maryland at home has been just awesome, and we know how good their interior. They're too big. Again, back to the too big lineup theme being successful. Queen and Reese has been great. Reese is sort of more of a hybrid type guy, but I I just did this spot, Jim, what UCLA just came off of. I think they actually are going to travel well here, despite all of the evidence so far saying that going west to east and east to west has not been good for the Big Ten teams or the ACC teams. I think Nick bucks the trend.
Yeah, I like UCLA too. I remember last year with a worse team than this when they got embarrassed at Utah and he like cut their balls off in the post game presser and was like, I hate this team. They won 8 out of 9 with their only loss at
Yeah.
Arizona by 6 points. Like they were really good out of that last year. I think Maryland's got a little bit of paper tigery to
I
them.
agree.
UCLA got its bigs back. Daly and Kyle were available last game. Should help against that front line of Maryland. I'll go UCLA as well on the road.
Iowa State and Texas Tech. I don't know my opinion on that game, on the other game, so I'm holding it to myself. Iowa State goes to Texas Tech. Huge win opportunity for the Raiders, who could use one. These are the number 6 and 7 offenses in the country. Two teams that have been known for defense, I would say, for most of our college basketball coverage, at least a 3-man weave. Also, Iowa State, one of just 2 teams in the top 10. This is one of my thoughts that I scrapped for next week. In both offense and defense in KenPom's metrics. The other one's Duke, Iowa State. 6th in offense, 9th in defense. Jim, Texas Tech is known as the number 1 home court advantage in KenPom, and according to Matthew Cox. But I think they've dropped a game already at Texas Tech this year.
Yeah, UCF torched them.
UCF torched them.
Yeah, 87 points. Graham McCasland called it his worst defensive effort of any team he's ever coached at any level.
Well, does he
Any
bounce
level.
back? Does he bounce back and beat Iowa State?
I mean, he bounced back at BYU. They played great defense. He said they practiced. They did 2 days. They think they practiced like the night before or something, which is pretty crazy. That's all. Jim, I think the Red Raiders get it done here. I think you see the Red Raiders that we're both yearning to see like full time with the healthier lineup, the bigs up front. And you mentioned Iowa State's front line, really good, not as like overwhelmingly dominant as it's been in years past. Again, only 9th in defense, not like first like usual. So I like the Raiders here. Sorry to interrupt, Jim. Go.
I think Texas Tech wins, but I want to see a little more from JT Toppin. He had that monster game in his return. He had 26 and 10 and 4 blocks, but they lost to UCF. And then the next 2 games where they played well, he averaged 8 points, 2 rebounds, 16 minutes. Like he was barely an entity. He got in foul trouble early against BYU, and they just didn't use him. And that's against a team with a huge front line. I don't know. I think their best version of a team still involves him out there, but right now it doesn't. So I'm shaky. I think they get it in the big home spot. I think they get the win, but I'm nervous about Toppin right now.
Huge. I like Texas Tech as well. Huge SEC battle. There always is, but Texas A&M hosting Alabama. A&M's resume is insane right now. They have 6 wins against top 50 KenPom teams, 5 against top 40. The wins are racking up, but they're coming off on Wednesday a win at Oklahoma without Wade Taylor, their best player, and they were down 18 points in that game. Maybe that says more about OU's collapse, but A&M's been a really good team. They're hosting Alabama, obviously another great team. Can Alabama keep the number 1 offensive rebounding team off the glass? Will Nate Oates and co. find a way to run and shoot against one of the best defenses in the country? Matthew, your thoughts here. Is Wade Taylor? I don't even know what Wade Taylor's injury is. Do you know?
I forgot to.
If he's out,
matters.
I like Alabama.
Yeah, actually, I think we talked about this in our Discord. It's just A&M's system is so like almost player agnostic. Like they're even without Wade Taylor, they're still gonna dominate the glass, and they're probably gonna dominate the turnover battle as well. But I think in this matchup, you'd like to have a game breaker like Wade Taylor. I agree with him that. So that one looms large. I still lean toward A&M even if he's out. Frankly, I think they kind of keep this mojo going through physicality. It's gonna be a lot for Bama. Jim, who hasn't quite really impressed me. I know they just beat South Carolina by 1,000,000, but I think that's more of an indictment on the Gamecocks being sort of a zombie team right now. This is a good litmus test for Alabama. I mean, very impressive non-con, but I still have some questions about their new look without right cell. I know Youngblood, we like him. He's coming back. He hasn't looked great, frankly. I know Mallett's been out. So I don't know. I'm just a little dicey on this Bama team. This kind of V2 of Bama, we'll call it.
See, I go the other way. They're playing awesome right now. In their last 4 games, Kent State by 27, South Dakota State by 23, Oklahoma by 28, South Carolina by 20. They're rolling. I'm going to go with the Tide. The Tide are rolling, Kai. High Tide.
High Tide.
I'm going with Alabama there. I continue to doubt Texas A&M a little bit. I mean, they won shot volume big time against Oklahoma. They survived Bryson Goodine having a complete out-of-body experience shooting the ball, but they also got Zurich Phelps going 6 for 10 from three, a 24% career three-point shooter. I'm going to go Bama there.
LeBaron Filan? How do you say
Filan.
LeBaron Filan, man. That guy is a stud. Bona fide stud. Alabama for me as well. Cincinnati hosting Kansas in a Big 12 tilt. The Bearcats, fellas, man, a darling in the preseason, even in KenPom top 20 preseason. But guess what? They don't have any wins. They have no top 50 KenPom wins after Dayton just fell out of the top 50 with their loss to UMass. They're now 0-3 to start Big 12 play. They've played at the Octagon. They've played at Baylor. They've hosted Arizona. It's not exactly the easiest of schedules. But if you're going to turn it around, if you're going to make the tournament, if you're going to get on the good, Kansas would be a great start. It's going to be a hyped environment. It's going to be a hyped crowd. The Jayhawks always have that mojo when they visit. Does Cincinnati have the goods to beat Kansas? I'm kind of skeptical, man. I really am. Maybe you can... I don't even know if they can take advantage of Dickinson. That's the problem, Jim, because Vendego's had such an advantage as a lob threat. I think Kansas kind of negates that, and Vendego can't really punish them on the other end by stretching the floor.
Yeah, Cincinnati's not been awesome like in ball screens because they don't have it. Well, against drop coverage, they don't have anybody that can pick and pop. You're going to get Jizzle James taking way too many mid-range jumpers. That's been kind of an inefficient methodology against better teams this year. They can't outmuscle Kansas really on the offensive glass. That said, Matt, I think they get the back against the wall win here.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Kansas has had like some really sleepy, lackadaisical halves. I think the first half against Arizona State, the first half against Mizzou, both halves against West Virginia. They just look disengaged, and now coming off one of their best halves of the season, where even Bill Self was like, man, we looked awesome that second half. Like the press conference, he was just effusive of their defense. I could see it being one of those kind of sleepier efforts for them, and it's tougher to recover on the road. So had they lost surprisingly against Arizona State, I think it would have been another road smash for Kansas like they did to UCF last weekend. But I'll say Cincinnati gets a big one here.
I agree. I mentioned the my concern with I mentioned Connor Hickman, who has been he was really good to start the year, and he was awesome for a really good Bradley team last season. I know I keep grasping for straws at these role players for Cincy, but they need some shooting, some shot making. I know CJ Frederick is basically a corpse at this point, but I put him aside. Hickman, somebody needs to make shots for this team because they get no rim pressure. And I know the 3-point percentage is still decent, but this offense just feels so one-dimensional. I think the shooting really shows up on the free throw line where they've been absolutely dreadful. I mean, it's been a multi-year thing. It's just in close games, you got to make free throws, not to be the old guy in the room, but you do.
I should mention, Kai, just last year in the Big 12 tournament, they embarrassed Kansas. I'm sure Dickinson didn't play in that game. Adams and Harris both did. I'm sure those guys remember
that. That's when Kansas was they were limping to the finish line. That's right. Yeah.
Broken. So maybe there's a little extra incentive for the Jayhawks. Maybe they won't be sleepy.
Yeah, I'm leaning Kansas in that one, fellas. Nothing strong. I do have a strong opinion in this one. Florida goes to Arkansas on Saturday. Tell you what, eye test, Florida is so much better than this Arkansas team. The coaching is not even close. The player level is not even close. When Nelly Davis is your lowest used player at Arkansas, I think there's an issue. And part of that's on Davis. He's pretty passive right now, but he's timid and hesitant, and he's not being empowered by Calipari. This team looks horrible, and Florida looks like a freaking wrecking ball. This team is awesome and executes to the highest level. I think they win at Bud Walton by 10.
So do I. I think if Ole Miss can go in there and control the second half by 10 the whole game, I think Florida can too. And that was with Arkansas already off a loss back against the wall version A. Now they're 0-2 in the league. It's even more back against the wall, but Florida's too good, Matt. They know who they are. Arkansas has no clue who they are. Their identity is gone. I'm all Gators there too.
Yeah, great home court there, but that can backfire, right? We saw this last season with the Must teams where it's just the crowd can turn against you and get kind of angsty. We saw this last year with Villanova to some degree. If Florida comes out and extends a pretty good lead, they get up, 3, 4, 5 possessions, and there's some kind of quirky, clunky offensive possessions, I think all that home court juice sort of is going to dissipate pretty quickly, and Florida's going to steamroll them. So, yeah, I like Florida here.
It's kind of similar, maybe not. Tennessee at Texas. Hey, Texas down 21 to Auburn, came back, made it a game, lost by 5. I guess give them a little bit of credit for that. But you got
they scored 42 points in the final 12 minutes.
That's
Texas did.
absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
But you have an angry Tennessee team coming off a 30-point loss. This might be a similar situation, Matthew, where I might just say, hey, the Vols are a way better team. Taking the Vols.
I'm going to go Vols as well. Obviously off the loss. I have nothing else to add. That's my angle. Like, legitimately, that's it. I just think this team's really good. And that was, life on the road will have weird results this season, lopsided results featuring good teams. And you should not put any stock into Tennessee being a fraud based on that.
Yeah, complete fluke shooting performance for Tennessee. They were 4 for 29 from the field in the first half. They were 4 for 29 from 3 for the game. Just bricks on open shots. Again, we mentioned Lanier had like the first cold shooting game of his entire season. Texas is no bueno. They were also down 20 at home to Auburn before Kaluma just went nuts, and I think Auburn was kind of ready to coast to the finish line. I think a very motivated, angry Tennessee team can kind of woodshed this Texas team.
And finally, Kentucky and Mississippi State. I am all the way on the Bulldogs. Boy, they are a good team. But hey, I'm all the way on Kentucky as well. I understand they just lost recently to who'd they lose to? Georgia.
They lost at Georgia last.
Norovirus was going around. Brea wasn't healthy. There's a lot of weird things that happened in that game. I don't know if I'm giving full points there. The spread for KenPom is 5. We'll talk about the spread, of course, on our betting show on Saturday. But man, if it's that high, I'm leaning Kentucky, even though I do love this Mississippi State team, Matt. But you're the Chris Jans whisperer. Your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I might keep riding the Fighting Jansies. I know the SEC, you're probably not going to see many like huge streaks of wins. It's just going to be too hard to mount that many wins against teams that are going to be desperate as it goes, especially talented teams like Kentucky. I'm just really in on the Mississippi State team. Like, very dominated Vandy for most of that game early. Vandy made a run late. But like, it's a totally complete team. Like, they check every box that you want. I think we're going to be talking Mississippi State is like, maybe not Tennessee, Florida tier in a month, but close to it. I mean, they're already pretty close right now analytically, like getting in close to the top 10. I just don't see any holes. And there's real upside with guys like Kugel and some of the talent they brought in. I don't see a weakness with this team. I just don't.
Yeah, I probably spread wise kind with you where it's like, Kentucky, I think can at least keep it close as long as they're healthier and Brea's back right. But I'm not going to pick a ton of SEC road teams, and I just picked 2.
No, yeah.
So I do think Mississippi State will get that one done, and Kentucky's going to have to bounce back at home.
It's a good
300 to 1 on your Bulldogs, Matthew. That's what I got Mississippi State at.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It's
why didn't I do that?
It's going to be almost impossible to win on the road in the SEC. It's very difficult to do it. Now, of course, Arkansas just crapped their pants and Ole Miss did it, so it's possible, but it's going to be difficult from a game-to-game basis. Okay, fellas, let's finish off the podcast with a little review section here. There is just one review. Again, if you want to leave us a review, leave a comment, ask a question, please do so on iTunes. Please leave a 5-star review. That'd be most helpful. This one is from Drew Schoenberger. Review from a KU fan. Hey guys, love the podcast. Listened to every episode since he found us doing best bets on Field 68 a couple years ago. Question that I'd loved everyone's answer to. I'm writing as the Jayhawks are losing 40-26 to West Virginia. What is Bill Self's obsession with playing too big? Dickinson and KJ Adams, Matthew, a little too big discussion. I understand why it was necessary last year, but this year Self could use the lineup of Harris, Mayo, Storr, Griffin, Dickinson, and yet he never uses it. Teams can just pack the paint, as KJ is not a shooting threat whatsoever, and KJ does not bring nearly enough defensively or on the glass. Is there something you guys think I'm missing? Sorry for the length review. Love the podcast. Best of luck to your Mizzou Tigers. Wow, that's very mature for a Kansas fan. We appreciate that, Drew.
Yeah.
And the Indiana Hoosiers the rest of the season. Matthew, early thoughts?
I think in hindsight, this KU roster just isn't built to succeed, and Bill Self has done a pretty masterful job with what he's had. But I think DeJuan Harris is more the problem. Like, I love him, but your floor spacing is cramped by having a non-shooter at point guard. And if you're going to have 2 non-shooters, 2 bigs, you got to have shooters on the perimeter, right? Like, look at Florida. I think we brought up Florida too many times as an exhibit on this podcast, but it's just a really weird, clunky construction of a roster that kind of we saw it rear its ugly head last year, and we're seeing the same flaws again this season. Still a very good team, still very high floor, but I think the ceiling is inherently capped by that same limitation we saw last year. I think that's just where I'm at this point with the KU team.
Yeah, I think he's not playing the small baller lineups because he hates the guys involved in it. He hates Storr. Griffin drives him nuts. Shaquille Moore isn't quite back, but he's not even a shooter, so he doesn't totally alleviate the issues. the one lineup that I think we're going to see more and more, and sorry to Mr. Veteran KJ Adams, but Badunga is such a freak athletically. I think they'll see more lineups with him and Dickinson together. They haven't played a ton together per CBB Analytics, but they have a plus 35 net rating, which is better than the Adams and Dickinson, which is plus 28, still good, but inflated by some of the buy game stuff. I think as they get into better competition, more Badunga is going to be a thing. He blocks everything. He gives it that more true bigs where you have the secondary shot blocker. Adams isn't quite that. So that's what I expect, Kai.
It's a good distinction. The two true bigs, where both bigs can be shot blockers and impact and rim pressure. That's what works, right? The Florida model, the Maryland a little bit this year as well.
AJ Storr, 3 minutes against Arizona State, no points.
Bill Self does not like AJ Storr.
Yeah, AJ
I didn't
Storr
like
is
AJ
already
Storr.
in the portal. He's already in the portal again.
Okay, that does it for us. Thank you for joining our weekly podcast. We'll be back next week on Thursday. Catch our Best Bets show on Saturday, 10 a.m. Central. If you're into sports betting, we're going to go through near the entire slate. 130-plus games, I think, again, this Saturday. Absolutely insane. Please just subscribe, like the channel, watch the YouTube video, subscribe everywhere. Hey, enjoy the rest of the week. Enjoy college basketball. We'll see you next time. Cheers.